Hi, everybody. Welcome to the CoronaSphere Lounge. I'm your host, Bill Whittle, reporting to you from the plane of infinite despair. I decided this time I would turn the recording on. Yesterday's show we did live, and I went looking for the recording, and it was gone, so I had to do it again by myself. Today is going to be, as usual, just kind of a single topic show. And unfortunately, it's not one that's terribly pleasant to talk about, but I think it's something that needs to be addressed, so we will address it because we certainly are on firmer footing when it comes to philosophy and culture than we are when it comes to precise medical advice. I'm going to play a clip for you, and it's about 2.5 minutes, but unlike just being quiet on this one, I'm going to be talking over it. This is something that happened, I want to say, 2 days ago. So let's watch it together and we'll talk it over as we go. What you see here, bear with me, folks. What you see here is the FBI raiding somebody's house in Brooklyn, and they are taking that person's private property. Those are N95 masks. They're the kind of masks that actually block incoming viruses. They're the kind of things that hospitals are in very short supply, and it's it's a precious commodity, especially in New York. So the question becomes, at what point does this become a guy who bought a bunch of boxes? And at what point does it turn into something different than that? So I'm just going to keep watching. I don't know what the number was. It was reported to me yesterday. I want to say that when they were all said and done, the number of N95 masks that this individual had purchased, legally purchased, prior to the outbreak, I think the total number came to 83,000. 83,000 N95 masks were taken from this guy's house. And this is actually a complex issue, and then maybe, on the other hand, it's actually a very simple issue. The gentleman who purchased these masks was selling them at a 700% markup and was essentially doing the same with some other badly needed medical devices, just medical equipment, protective equipment, things like surgical gowns and so on. You can see that they just keep on coming. And so it's a 700% markup. And the question is, when does this become fair? Somebody mentioned as perhaps these were stolen. I'd heard stories about that too. I don't know if they were. There are. Donald Trump said that several masks were missing. For the sake of the argument, we're just going to go with what I assume is the case, and that is that those belong to the gentleman who owned the house and who purchased them. By the way, I'm surprised the clip cut out as early as it did. I've seen it to its conclusion. I guess it was just too long. I didn't get a chance. I just downloaded it. But by the time they were finished, those boxes came to the end of the truck. They literally filled all the way to the end of the truck. So this brings up a question. I saw a number of different comments about this. And I have to tell you, I am really not sure where to go to this. So a lot of people are saying if you bought them legally, the police had no right to take them. That is certainly the head argument. And in terms of philosophy, I suppose that's true. And yet, watching this, there is I have an instinctive moral reaction to this. And the idea that critical personnel out there have no access to these things, have no idea really that they're there, and essentially he's hanging on to them because the price was increasing on a daily basis as people became more and more desperate for them. I I understand the argument about it's his property. He bought it. He can do whatever he wants to. He's slime, but we have a right to be slime. I get all of that. But I have to tell you, in my core, in my personal core, it feels very, very, very wrong to me. Very, very wrong to me. If you were to take this to its logical extreme, you would have to say that if somebody were to buy up the entire food supply for the country and withheld it, knowing that as people get hungrier and hungrier, the price of that food will go up. At what point does that no longer become a question of personal rights and and you know capitalism, free market, all that stuff? At what point does that line cross? I don't think this is. Some people are just real easy on this. It's his property. He can do whatever he wants to with it. If he wants to sell it for $10,000 a mask, that's his business. He bought it, and he can sell it for whatever he wants to. I understand that argument, but my head understands it. My heart just doesn't, and I can't get I can't get the two together. I don't know what to do about it. I can tell you from a strictly primitive point of view that he's able to do that because the law is still working. I think if the police weren't there and people were to be aware of this, there would be some people who would be willing to get a little violent about this. It's not a question even of the markup. It's a question of availability. It's a question of this being a desperately needed resource that people in the healthcare positions in New York City are dying from, or at least being exposed to and risk dying from, because they can't get them, because they don't have access to them. Certainly this guy didn't advertise for this exactly. I don't know the details about the case, but it brings up really important question. People are saying if he compensated the man with fair market value of what they took, that's fine, but confiscation is a no-go for me. Okay, so let's just say that they paid him for fair market compensation. Did they have a right to go in and take it? In other words, if your problem is they took the property without paying for it, okay. If they take the property and paid him what he paid for it, they just basically said, "What did you spend on it? Here's the number. Here's your check back." Now the government bought them, and it goes to where it's needed. But you have to ask yourself some questions about hoarding, and I use this example only because it's so kind of shocking and so clear. And this is the question: in a crisis, do you have the right to go into a supermarket and buy all the food and leave? Do you have that right? It doesn't seem to me that you do. I saw one picture of people, and this is in the early days of the panic buying. I saw one picture of a person with rolls and rolls and rolls of toilet paper stacked all the way to the on a cart. I mean, this cart looked just there was nothing else you could have put on. It had it stacked to the ceiling. So the question is, what do you do about this? You want to protect civil liberties, and you want to make sure that emergencies are not the pathway for the government to set up lines of tyranny and so on. And at the same time, I just cannot. I just there comes a point when the philosophy and the reality diverge for me, and this is one of those cases. If there is no if somebody goes into a grocery store right now and bought all of the food on the shelves, which is a simple extension of the argument. It's like, it's my money, I got there, I'm paying for it, it's my property. If that person buys all the food on the shelves, do they have a right to do that? In an emergency, is it reasonable for the people who own the store to basically say to a customer? Is it reasonable for me to go to a supermarket, buy all of the canned soup, all the canned goods in the supermarket, and then sell it outside the supermarket for 5 times what I paid for it? At what point does this become? At what point does this not become a market issue? Because I can't see it. I just can't. I cannot see it. This is, yeah, Dave Big Booty, I think, is on it. He said, Dave Big Booty says, it's not like this is buying up all the front row tickets to the Kiss farewell concert and scalping them for 700% markup. I think probably that really helps me. I think that's the issue. This is not, by the way, scalping is illegal. This is something different than a football ticket. And I honestly don't know what to say about it. I'm always interested to see the comment section here. We have obviously a pretty conservative audience here. A lot of people are saying, "Hey, that's the market, and he paid for it, and they got no right to take it." I don't feel that's true. I just don't. It doesn't feel right to me that these particular masks are in desperate need, especially by the people that are out there trying to save lives, and 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 I don't see how the opportunity to make quite a tidy profit supersedes that in times like this. I just don't. So again, we're kind of dealing with this in the comment section as it comes through. I'm looking at a bunch of things. A lot of people are saying that if the government paid what they cost, then they'd be all right with that. I think I certainly see that's, I personally agree. Turned out the guy was arrested anyway, because of price gouging laws and so on. But what do we make of this? In other words, we have the fact that this is news is an indication of how rare this is. Got somebody here who just said, yeah, they should pay the market rate for them. Well, the market rate, apparently, is 7 times what they were bought for, and they can't be had for love or money. It's and again, this one I don't have an answer for. This one I just have feelings for. So we're kind of talking this one out. A person here, John Galt USA, who's traditionally been extremely kind of stout, libertarian, leave us alone, free marketeer, and so on, said that it'd be all right if the government paid if the government didn't just steal his property, if they paid for it. One thing, and he just mentioned that his brother-in-law manufactures medical supplies, and his partner wanted to gouge the price, wanted to raise the price, and his brother-in-law slapped the partner down and said no. This is Um, well, you know, when somebody's just said, well, no, it can be had for love or money, and the money is 700% profit. Okay, 7,000% profit, 700,000% profit. He can't use all of those masks himself. He bought them in order to make a profit. He bought them in order to make a profit off of a need that he saw coming, but that need was predicated on a medical emergency. And if people don't get this product, some of them are going to die. So, so you know, the reason this is so interesting and disturbing and hard is because freedom only works with a moral people. John Adams said that our form of government is only applicable to a religious people. He may have said virtuous people, but that's really that. Regardless of what he said, that's the word. Freedom and capitalism and all the rest of it, Republican type democracy, all of it is based upon a virtuous population. And when you don't have a virtuous population, you have to enforce order from above instead of from within. So, where where do we draw that line? You know what do you say about this? Is it I don't I just I wrestle with it in my head, but when I see it with my own eyes and my heart, I say this is wrong. This is wrong. This is just wrong. The this is I don't know. It's I'm mystified. I'm flabbergasted. I don't know. I don't really know what to say about this. Um, I don't. In a world where so many people, Sarge says, what if it was your what if it was your ammunition? Other people's lives don't depend on my ammunition. I can have all the rounds of ammunition I want to, and that doesn't affect the lives of people out there. It's not that people don't require ammunition to live, and there are people who are out there in the midst of a major pandemic who are at risk of dying because they don't have enough ammunition. This isn't food because food can be obtained from any number of other places. You can buy food out there. Food is still working. Truck drivers are still working. God bless them. And the grocery store clerks are still working. All of that. This is a scarce commodity that is not the kind of thing that you can circumvent. It's not the kind of thing that you can go shopping for. These things are desperately needed, and they're not there. So I don't know. I don't know what to say about that. Um, I don't. I think the entire idea of it, and look, people have been saying in the comments section today that the reason I'm wrestling with this is that because I have a conscience, and the guy who does this doesn't, and fair enough. I think that's probably right. Um, so, so what do you do? It, we society can afford to have people who don't play by the rules within certain within certain confines. Uh, there are people who cheat by cutting in front of you on the freeway, and there's this kind of uh, unethical cheating behavior that may be not illegal but is certainly kind of immoral. This kind of thing goes on all the time, and to me, most of the time, that's the price of freedom. Some people are going to cheat. And again, see, people are saying it's better to have some rule breakers than to have a police state, and I agree with that too. But, but, I cannot, I cannot just sit there and buy that argument. I just can't. I'm sorry. I can't do it emotionally. I cannot. I cannot say, it's his business, whatever he wants to do. I'm sorry. I just can't do it. I cannot get there. There is a moral response in between me and the intellectual idea that this guy has a right to do whatever he wants to with his own property and his own. It just I can't get there. There's something really, really, really wrong about this. Now, in in a lawless society, if this person was hoarding food or anything else that people needed, there would not be we wouldn't be having a legal discussion about this. People would just break into the house, probably beat him to pulp, and take it. So I'm I am I'm wrestling with this, and on some level, I don't know why, but at the same time, I am. Um, is people are saying trust your principles, like yeah, okay, my principles say yeah, that's he can do whatever he wants to with his money, and if he's sitting on 80,000 masks that could be saving people's lives, then that's his business decision, and I can't do it. I can't get there. There's some part of me that is just plain. There's a part of me that can tell right from wrong, and this is wrong. And to say that the alternative is worse is certainly an argument, but I just can't. I can't. Yeah, the whole idea of natural law, the whole idea of rights that are present with us at birth and that are not granted to us by the government, that entire idea is predicated on one thing, really, and that is that there are certain values that all human beings have and share in common, and that there is a moral argument for just about anything. Um, People are saying, well, they're making more masks, and people need those masks now, and I don't. I can't. I cannot. I can't defend this. I can't. I just can't. I think it is. I think it is so fundamentally immoral. And all of the times I see people stepping up in this country and doing things like like voluntarily donating medicine doses. There was an Israeli company that builds ventilators, and they had a patent on their design, and they simply called their competitors and gave them the patent. They said, "This is how we're building this better. Take it. This is more important than that." This People are saying, we just go get them somewhere else. They can't be gotten somewhere else. You cannot. I don't know what it's like in the rest of the country, but you cannot buy a mask of any kind in Los Angeles ever. And I've been to stores all the time. It is not possible to get one. People have come in and bought them all up. They've bought more than they're going to use for themselves. They've bought them all up. There aren't any now, and the the I don't know. Um, so people say there are gouging laws. How do you decide? If you'd bought all these masks and sold them at a 20% markup, would anybody have a problem with that? No. It's not the price to me. It's not the price. Uh, it's the it's the it's the withholding of life giving or life saving supplies, and I just find that is so morally repugnant that I'm you know, I'm stuck. And I got to tell you, I don't know how people can just blithely take either one of these arguments, just which is what I saw on Reddit when I saw this. I saw people saying, "Hey, it's his business, does whatever he wants to. If you want to charge $100 million per each mask, he bought the mask. It's his property. He can do whatever he wants to." I saw other people saying that he has no right to do this whatsoever, and it needs to be completely confiscated from him, and he needs to go to jail. And who is he to buy all this stuff? And so I saw both those arguments out there, and I can't get comfortable with either one of those things. Um, and we're going to have to start thinking about things like this. Um, we're going to have to start thinking about this kind of thing seriously. Um, and I don't have an answer for it. And the reason I don't have an answer for it is because I don't have any idea where you would draw that line. And I think this is the whole thing I've been trying to get to as we circle around it, you know. Um, I don't know how you draw the line. I don't know what you define as price gouging or hoarding. Is 5 cans of soup hoarding? Is 50 cases of soup hoarding? Is it, at what point does it no longer is it no longer ethical? This is the problem. Nobody's in favor of hoarding. No one's in favor of this, and no one thinks this is swell. The problem is, how do you decide? At what point does this become unacceptable? Where is the line? And that's why it's not an easy question. It's not an easy question. And when I heard stories about people selling rolls of toilet paper for $80, I thought that guy's a jerk, but that didn't have this effect on me at all. I just thought, okay. And hand sanitizers for $200, $300. Again, I think that guy's a complete jerk, but that's not the same thing as this, and I don't exactly know why. But it's true. If somebody wants to go out and charge $100 for a roll of toilet paper, and people are ready to pay it, okay, because there are alternatives. You can do so. There is a way around this. Uh, the This is different, and I can't tell you why it's different, but but it is. And for the people who are just saying that it's not that there's no big deal here, that there's no reason to interfere like this. I don't get that thing either, and I don't know what to do about it. Um, Somebody keeps saying, Vassar says you don't need an N95 mask. You can use anything to cover your face. Covering your face with a cloth or anything like that reduces the amount of viruses that you transmit, but it does not filter viruses on the way in, and the N95 masks do. That's why they're needed among healthcare professionals, because these people are dealing with uh, environments that are absolutely flooded with virus, and they're out there saving lives. Um, so it's not a trivial thing. You can't go and make an N95. You cannot go out and make an N95 mask. You just can't go out and put a cloth over your mouth. Protects other people from your virus spill, but it doesn't protect incoming viruses. And that's the definition of one of these things, as I understand it. So, so what do? There are people in New York hospitals, nurses and doctors, who are in a practical panic because they are not getting the protection they need for whatever reason. Talk about there should have been supply stockpile. It doesn't matter. They can't. They are not getting the protection that they need as they work in these virus-filled emergency rooms. And if they contract the disease, even if it doesn't kill them, and it won't kill most of them, it takes them out of the game for a week or two. It takes not the patients, it takes the doctors out of the game for a week or two. And meanwhile, there sit 85,000 of them waiting for what? Waiting for what? I don't get it. I don't. And the reason this is so damn difficult for me is because it is evidence to me that that things like the free market system and self-governance and all of this stuff is predicated upon individual virtue. And when you see somebody taking advantage of other people's virtue, then you have to start asking yourself, what do we do about this? What do we do about it? I've been to the supermarket, I don't know how many times since this lockdown occurred in California. Include trips to 7-Eleven, it's probably 7, 8, 9 times. And I've gone in and I've purchased what I needed. I didn't purchase everything I could afford because I could probably afford to take just about everything out of that store. And I didn't do it. And the reason I didn't do it was because it seems to me to be wrong to do it. And I actually, honestly, be perfectly honest with you, I really do think that I would rather die of starvation than sit on top of cans of food while people around me are starving. That's just the way I'm built. That's just the way I'm built. And I don't have to prove it. Because that's how I behave. People are saying, why does it bother me so much to discover that there's a jerk in New York City? The reason it bothers me so much, Laura, is because this jerk in New York City has created an ethical dilemma for me, a big one. And I don't think and frankly, just my personal opinion, if it does not create any ethical dilemma for you on either side of the argument, then I think there's something really missing. If on some level it doesn't bother you that the FBI bursts into this guy's house and takes away his property, then it should bother you. And if you're not bothered by the fact that there's 85,000 of these masks needed by medical personnel that are not being deployed or sold or whatever, if that doesn't bother you, then I also think there's something wrong. I don't. Now, somebody just says if a healthcare worker dies for lack of a mask, then charge him with murder. That's ridiculous. He didn't murder that person. You see why this is so hard? If he doesn't provide the mask, you can't say that he murdered those people, but you could make the case that the person's death was a result of his actions. And it's not like It says, yet I'm one of the ones saying no one needs a mask. I'm not saying no one needs a mask. If you saw the episode a few days ago, The Case for Masks, I saw video of how much actual microscopic droplets are produced, and it changed my mind. I think the masks are not there to protect you. The masks are there to protect other people. If I had a mask right now, I would print on it, "This is not for me." Oh, sorry. "This is for you. Thank you." Sorry, G.K. Masterson. I thought you were talking to me. That's what I would put on a mask, by the way. I said, "This isn't for my protection. This is for your protection." Anyway, I know there's not a lot of answers here, and usually I have a handle on things, but this one's got me really, really, really torn. And that's the only word for it, torn. And that's why it's so painful, because it's hard to see somebody. It's hard to see somebody who is so alien to what I personally believe that that they have to put my my ideological beliefs against my fundamental moral instincts, and I don't have an answer for this one. I don't think the state is the answer. I don't think I don't think raiding people's houses is the answer. I don't know what the answer is. I guess the reason it bothers me so much is because there is no answer. Maybe that's why it bothers me so much. There's no answer that I can find to this. I can't think of a case where the cure wouldn't be worse than the disease in this case, in terms of, empowering a state to go in there and take it. That's really not good. Sitting on desperately needed supplies while people are fighting to save other people's lives, not good either. I don't guess I have much more to say about it. I just have a deep sadness about it, real deep sadness about it, and I just wish it wasn't happening. But if I lived by what I wish by, I'd be wishing for things like free healthcare and all the rest of the stuff that's nice to wish for. So the consensus seems to be pay the guy what he paid for them, and then take them and give them to hospitals. I'm not entirely sure that gets you out of the conundrum. I'll tell you, I'll just close with this. I forget who said it. It might have been Earl Warren. I'm not sure. But there were pornography issues in front of the Supreme Court. And I suppose if you're 100% libertarian, then there's no reason why there shouldn't be pornographic posters up in 7-Eleven so people could sell pornographic magazines. It's not illegal. I mean, hardcore pornographic images right there in front of everybody. So they were having this discussion about the presence of pornography. They were trying to decide, okay, well, what is it? How do we define it? Is Playboy pornography? What about Maxim? What about Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue? They went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth on it. But finally, the only answer that seemed to make any sense, I think it was Earl Warren, it might not have been, was when they were trying to finally come up with the definition of what was pornography as opposed to artistic nudity, referring to pornography. He said, "I know it when I see it." And I guess it's about the only thing I've got really right now to say, folks. That's all I've got. And I think maybe that's the reason why I wanted to handle this one, because I was Potter Stewart. Sorry, thank you. It's always great to have a comment section. that's that's why I wanted to have this conversation. I can't define it, but I know it when I see it. And 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 if you can't tell, then I think that's something to talk about too. I guess when it's all said and done, the people who are arguing that the government has no business taking this away from him are are looking at the legal aspect of it and the philosophical aspect of it and the dangers of all of the consequences of doing it. But I suppose the reason for all this turmoil uh, and strife is because doing the right thing and doing the smart thing and doing the legal thing are sometimes not mutually exclusive. There are many things that people can do that are legal, and I still think they're wrong. And this seems to be one of those. And I guess ultimately that's what it is. The law protects us against tyranny, the law protects us against any number of things. The free market is nothing but a benefit to the world. Uh, and um, and nevertheless, I think this is wrong. So that's the problem. I know it's wrong. Everybody knows it's wrong. We just disagree about what should be done about it. And I think that's a reasonable discussion to have, and I think that's why uh, it's worth struggling with these things, because I suspect that when you get right down to it and you come back all the way around to the beginning, you can't find a solution that's worse than the disease. You can't find a cure that's worse than the disease. When it's all said and done, you have to you have to simply say to yourself, what's the solution? A more powerful state, limits on what you're able to charge for property you want to sell. I think both of those things are probably worse, and I still think it's wrong. So anyway, that's where that one is. I'm sorry I don't have a clear cut, perfectly reasoned case for either side, but I don't. I just don't. I do. I do genuinely stand in in amazement at somebody who could do such a thing. Whenever I see people stepping up in an emergency and voluntarily providing relief, not being taken from them by the state at gunpoint, somebody comes forward and donates 130 million doses of hydroxychloroquine. Uh, and I see the pillow guy who's saying he's going to turn his factory into manufacturing masks. They're going to give them away. I see all of this stuff, and it makes me proud of the country, and it makes me proud of self-governance. It makes me proud of the free market that has allowed people the prosperity and the ability to be able to deliver on all these things that simply would never, ever, ever happen, could not happen in a socialist society because they don't have the resources. And all of that stuff makes me feel great. And then we come along with this, and now I'm circling around and trying to get a handle on it. And I suppose that this is just one of those horrible, horrible things where you just have to say that this is the price of the system. It's like watching OJ walk out of court with a big smile on his face. I know he's guilty. Everybody knows he's guilty. And it drives me absolutely batshit crazy that a guilty person can commit that kind of murder in front of everybody, laugh at the world, walk out, and get away with it. I just bang my head against the wall with that, and then I come back to, this is the price of the system, I suppose. I suppose that's ultimately it. This is what it costs. This is what it cost. It's a high price to pay. Well, that's what happens when you build a society of human beings instead of angels, I guess. John Galt points out the entire presumption of innocence is predicated on the idea that 10 guilty men walking free is better than one innocent man being jailed. But it's hard to watch the guilty men walk free. It's very, very, very hard to do that. Your sense of justice is offended, and anyway, I just thought I would struggle with it on camera for those of you. Getting a lot of feedback from the people who are watching. A lot of people watch this without the feedback. I don't know if this has been of any use to you or whether it's caused you any confusion or what. It's really, really awful. And I suppose since it's a news story, we just have to count our blessings and say that it is such an exception, and especially at times when people are voluntarily, willingly, lovingly stepping up, that when I see something like this, I just need to isolate it and just say, okay, that's it. People are asking if there's going to be a stress for lunch tonight. I just put a post up on Facebook. I'm not able to do it tonight. I just have too much work I have to finish. I'm sorry. I made a commitment to keep doing these CoronaSphere Lounge things. It's a tremendous commitment in terms of work and research and so on. And I just don't have the time to do it tonight. I'm sorry. I comfort myself by saying I had a chance to talk about things for an hour, but in any event, that's that. So anyway, something to think about, lots of things to think about, and I guess we'll all just worry about it and deal with it our own way.